would sure love to have the kind of phone, whatever they have on TV, that anytime the bad guy has their phone locked, they just stick that phone down there near his face and it opens up. Sometimes mine opens up when I have my glasses on, sometimes when it's off, and sometimes it just says, that ain't me. So, I just wish I had that kind of a phone. Our lesson today is going to be in 2 John. We're going to be hitting the highlights of 2 John because it's kind of small. We'll be hitting the highlights. And that's what we're going to be looking at today. So we'll start out with the first verse. The elder to the elect lady and her children, whom I love in truth, and not only I, but also all who know the truth, because of the truth that abides in us and will be with us forever. There's a great debate. Is this elect lady some real lady who has children? Is it a particular congregation and the people in the congregation are the children? Or is it the church universal and Christians the children? And that if you go to the very end of it, verse 13, it goes, the children of your elect sister greet you. So he begins and ends with something that people debate about. For everything that one side has, the other one has an answer. I have an answer too. It's a fundamental rule of Bible study. Doesn't matter. Fundamental rule of Bible study. You can go down a rabbit hole and get so far away from God trying to be righteous by not asking yourself a simple question. Does it matter? What was God trying to tell me in this particular passage? In this case, does it matter whether it's a person who has a sister wherever John is at this time? Probably Ephesus, that's where he spent most of his time. Or that it's a congregation? No, because the truth that he says in the rest of it works whether he's talking to one person, to a congregation, or to the church in general. There's nothing in this letter that changes a whit depending upon who the elect lady is. So, don't worry about it. Don't go down that rabbit hole. Now, verse 4, he goes, I rejoice greatly to find some of your children walking in truth, just as we were commanded by the Father, and now I ask you, dear lady. He's going to go on. He goes, he will rejoice greatly that some of her children were walking in the truth. I have a question for you. Do all your children walk in the truth? I hope they do. But you know, I'll bet you that if some of you have children that don't, it really hurts, doesn't it? It bothers you a lot. listen to what the apostle said. I rejoice greatly to find some of your children walking in the truth. He didn't say, well, I'm a little happy, but just really sad because only some of your children are walking in the truth. I rejoice greatly that some of your children are walking in the truth because this life is hard and the devil sucks people away. So you know what? If some of your children are walking in the truth, I want you to rejoice greatly too. I don't just give up on the others, but I want you to rejoice with what you've got. You didn't think that was coming, did you? We don't usually see that when we read this, but that's what it's saying is John wasn't upset that not every one of the children, whether it's congregations, whatever it is, he just rejoiced that some were. And now I ask you, dear lady, not as though I were writing a new commandment, but the one we have had from the beginning, that we love one another. We had this one from two beginnings. If you go back, all the way back, the greatest commandment is to love God, and the second one, like unto it, is to love your neighbor. What did Jesus say when John was with him in the beginning of the ministry? Love your neighbor. That's what the whole Good Samaritan is about. Love your neighbor. Now, if you go to 1 John 4, 7 through 12, and we'll go there and we'll look a little bit about that because it's dealing in the same kind of thing. 1 John 4, 7 through 12 says, Beloved, let us love one another, for love is from God. And whoever loves is born of God and knows God. Anyone who does not love God does not know God, because God is love. In this is the love of God was made manifest among us, that God sent his only Son into the world that we might live through him. And this is love, not that we have loved God, but that he loved us and sent his Son to be propitiation for our sins. Beloved, if God loved us, we also ought to love one another. This love is something special. Something that we get from somewhere. Now we're going to go down to, still stay in 1 John, down to verse 19. We love because he first loved us. Now we have trouble anytime we speak of love. Because in English, love is a shotgun word. It has a whole lot of different meanings. I call it a shotgun word because it just spreads out there and covers almost everything. And that's why you see preachers going back to the Greek and throwing out those Greek words, because they help us understand something. Greek had 3 types of love, and we have at least 4 that we actually consider love. But Greek had eros, love, sexual love, eros, woo! And it had phileo, brother, that kind of love. Now we have combined those two and made what we call romantic love. They didn't have that back there, but we've combined those two. But in the Bible, that's not the word that they use. They use agape or agapeo or any of the forms of it, and you find that almost no place else except in the Bible and Christian writings. Because it is a strange thing. Because it is unselfish love. Every other type of love is selfish. Erotic love is selfish. Romantic love is selfish. Why do you think people get divorced after about 2 or 3 years? Because that feeling of, she makes me feel so good every time she walks in the room, that's selfish. You love them because of what they do for you, how they make you feel, how they do. Well, what about friendly love? You ever lost a friend or a brother because they didn't do what was good for you? Why? Because friendly love, brotherly love, phileo love is selfish. At its core, it is still what's good for me. Agape love is unselfish love. It is love that is good for the other. First John 4:19. We love because he first loved us. The reason you don't find agape in the ancient writings, except for the religious ones, is because this is a divine love. We love because he first loved us. We can love unselfishly because he gave us that love. He taught us that love. His Spirit in us has that love, so we can give that love. I saw something on the internet about this kind of love means we have to change. And it does, because it's a divine love. And it means we have to become more like God to have that kind of love. To truly love your neighbor. But I'm going to say something that's even more. Agape love, Christian love, means you have to think. You have to think. You don't have to think to love your brother. You don't have to think to love a friend. I have friends from college that if they called me up and said, Les, I'm in trouble, I need you, I'm on a plane. Sorry, I don't have to think about it. There's nothing to think about. Christian love means you have to think, because you have to do what is best for the other person. Not what they want, not what they like, not what you want, and not what you like, but you have to do what is best for them. And how do you do that if you don't think? I'm going to tell you a story. It's about a woman that was just about like the Clarence. She found oil. And she had money. She got rich. She didn't go to Beverly Hills. She went to New York City. And she pulled up in front of the Plaza Hotel in a Rolls Royce. And she gets out. Next Rolls Royce pulls up, and her hound dog gets out. Next Rolls Royce comes out, and they take out the luggage. The next one pulls up, and the doorman opens the door, and there's a 25-year-old boy sitting there. And he looks at him, and she goes, "Well, help him out." Can't he walk? Of course he can. But thank goodness he don't have to. That's not love. It masquerades as love, but keeping somebody from growing and from using themselves is not love. That's why we have such a problem today in understanding how do we deal with poverty? How do we deal with immigration? Because it ain't easy. You have to find the difference and find out what is best for everybody. What is best? That means you have to think. And I don't know if you figured it out yet, but this world doesn't like to think. We don't like to think. We like to have somebody to tell us what to do. And I'm just following orders. I'm just doing what we're supposed to do. God gave us a brain. And we need to use that to figure out how to love people. I know when I preach mainly in highway churches. Churches along the highway. I never gave anybody that came by cash. Took them out for a meal. Filled the car up with gas. But I was afraid that if I gave them cash, it wouldn't be for their good. Now, that requires thinking. It's easy to say, give them money or don't give them nothing. But trying to figure out how to meet their needs takes thinking. I'm not saying that I came out with the right answer, but I was trying to come up with the right answer. That's love. So go back to 2 John. And we'll go. Then he defines love another way. He goes, and this is love, that we walk according to his commandments. Oh. You mean love means we have to do what's right? It's not just enough to love one another. Oh, we just love everybody. That's all Jesus ever talked about was love. Pay more attention to the words in red in the Bible. He said a lot of things about doing things. This is the commandment, just as you've heard from the beginning, that you should walk in it. For many deceivers have gone out into the world You need to walk in this commandment. Walk in the love. Walk in doing his commandments. You notice there's a commandments and commandment. An S and a no S. The commandment is love, that we walk in his commandments. Many deceivers have gone out of the world, those who do not confess the coming of Jesus Christ in the flesh. Such a one is the deceiver and the Antichrist. People who do not believe that Jesus came in the flesh are the Antichrist. Not some weird thing coming down in it. Pretty clear. That's the Antichrist. Those that do not believe that Jesus came in the flesh. That means that he's the Son of God, but that he's also a man, and that he came in the flesh. And are there people teaching that today? That Jesus didn't come in the flesh? Some say he never came. He never was here. Some say, well, he wasn't really flesh. And there's a lot of doctrines like that. But the fact is, that's what makes the Antichrist, is not believing in the Christ. And we'll go back to 1 John 4. And verses 2 and 3. By this you know the Spirit of God. Every spirit that confesses that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is from God. And every spirit that does not confess Jesus is not from God. This is the spirit of the Antichrist, which you heard was coming, and now is in the world already. Don't be looking at the newspaper to find the Antichrist. The Antichrist has been here and will be here until Jesus comes again. Anyone that does not confess that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh. In 2 John, he just says Jesus because he's including all the other things in that. Here he's being specific. Jesus Christ. And in the Greek it's Jesus the Messiah. The one sent from God to save us. You don't believe that he came and that he came in the flesh and that he's the Christ, the Savior? That's the Antichrist. Nothing weird about it. Just that's what it is. Watch yourselves so that you may not lose what we have worked for, but may win a full reward. Everyone who goes on ahead and does not abide in the teaching of Christ does not have God. I'm going to tell you something about the word of. An of can cause you a lot of trouble in Bible study. Because of has different meanings. And you can only tell from context which it is. It's the same in English as it is in Greek. The same word, can mean different things. It can mean, and I'm going to use the one here because it does make it easier for us to understand. The teaching of Christ can mean the teaching about Christ, the teaching of Christ. If you're in California and you say, hey, I want to talk about Jesus, the people there will say, we do not allow the teaching of Christ in this school. That means the teaching about Christ. We don't allow that. You're not allowed to do that. Or it could mean the teachings belonging to Christ or from Him. Well, sometimes when we talk about the teaching of Christ, we're talking about what He taught. So when you see the word of, you have to look at the context to see specifically what it's saying. Now, Michelle could tell you that one is the genitive and the other is something else. I can't, because my mind, I wasn't good in English, I wasn't good in Spanish, and I wasn't good in Greek. And I will never be a grammarian. But there are these two ways. Now, once again, we go back to what we started this with. Guess what? Does it matter? No. In fact, probably it's used both ways in these passages here. Because everyone who goes on ahead and does not abide in the teaching of Christ doesn't have God. Whoever abides in the teaching has both the Father and the Son. Can you abide? Is it easy to live in the teaching about Christ, or is it easier to live in the teachings of Christ? Probably both here. If anyone comes to you and does not bring this teaching, do not receive them into your house or give him any greeting. For whoever greets him takes part in his wicked works. Love your neighbor. Love Christ, which means keeping His commandments. And never let anything keep you away from the idea that Jesus, the Messiah, came in the flesh. It didn't say just he was born in the flesh. It says came in the flesh. That meant He came from someplace else. He came in the flesh. And in the flesh, He went to the cross. And on the cross, He died. That we will not have to die forever, but that we, like Him, can come from the grave and live forever. If anybody needs to answer the invitation in a public way, you can come now.